Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. On Apple, recommend Apple Podcasts. On Android, we recommend Spotify. Also, check out the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Plenty of content from Media Day is being posted there. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. That's where the behind-the-scenes stuff goes. 10 different channels, includes the host updates and the stage shows. We do all kinds of stuff you won't find anywhere else. We take everything good from Twitter. We put it there. It's the place for the most heat, information, and conversation. You can find the link right there in the description, and you'll bypass the Apple upcharge. Also, check out PrizePicks. Football season, you're going to want to be playing. Also, basketball season, hockey season starting up too. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Make sure you put that in. Remove the one that's in there. Put in the code 5. You'll get $50 in lineups. They'll be put on the Explore page. Check it out. It is legal in the state of Florida. This is our daily fantasy partner, 2 to 6 players together across the sports spectrum. Flex play, power play, it's all there. Check it out. It's prizepicks.com. Code 5. And now, today's episode.
Uh-oh. Yeah. It's Mercy. Music by Mercy again. Heat Nation, we the culture. Yo, E, I need you to call timeout. Need Brady to set the floor plan. Tropical blanket, open for the shot. Yo, Greg, set the pick. Still 5 on the floor, still ride for my dog. Still battle on the court, still survive in the war. Keep your eye on the ball, or get burned from the keep this mic off the wall without turning the cheek. From night to day, no sleeping paths or allowed to morning. The nut is sleeping us, never catch us snoring. Live from Miami, report in the heat with 5 Reasons Sports from the courts to the streets. Yeah, Wake County, Heat Nation, we say it proudly.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at 5 Reasons Sports. It's a very generic background behind us. I've got Brady Hawk. You can follow the Brady Hawk 305. We're buried somewhere in Kaseya Center. They might let us out before training camp. The Miami Heat held Media Day today. Myself, Alex, Mateo, we were all here, as well as Kevin Rodriguez. We appreciate him helping us out. And the videos from the various interviews that we did with Nikola Jovic, Jaime Hawkins Jr., Pella Larson, Kello Ware, and others will be posted here on the YouTube channel in the next few days. So make sure you check that out. That'll also be posted on the podcast feed. We're going to go through 5 quick themes from today's Media Day. I'm going to come up with them off the top of my head. Let's start here. Number one, I thought obviously the most important thing for Heat fans, I think, is when is Tyler Herro going to be back? So Herro did speak to the media today. He did all the Media Day stuff. Then he rode around on a little scooter afterwards. I thought it was interesting that he was specific about his timeline, and yet it's not exactly the same timeline that was put out there publicly. Now, one thing he did say, for people that are wondering, why did he have the surgery so close to the season? What was that about? Apparently, he did this earlier in the summer or felt something. He was working out at Miami-Dade Community College, and he felt kind of a pinch, and they thought that they could treat it. And ultimately, it turned out doctors told him that he had an extra bone in the ankle and they needed to remove it. So he had the procedure. It's been from now about 10 days. He said he'd be back in 8 to 12 weeks. The original release from the Heat was 8 weeks. And again, that's not into the season. That was 8 weeks from the surgery. I had heard initially it was 8 to 12 weeks. So this is more consistent with what I've heard. That timeline, though, I think is going to be a little scarier for Brady. Not for Brady, for Brady. For Heat fans, Brady. Even if Tyler told Spo he's going to be back in 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think it was also a little confusing just because he said 8 to 12 weeks, but that could have been him referencing from the procedure. Like, I just think that might have been a mix-up on his part. Like, he wasn't saying from today 8 to 12 weeks. He also did say he thinks he's going to be back in 6 weeks, which is very player-oriented. But as we've learned, especially with the Heat, it never really leans to the beginning of the timeline. It usually leans more into the 12 weeks, which is, I think, why people would be worried about that specific timeline being mentioned. The funny part is because Spo didn't mention it. I mean, when Spo was asked about it, he avoided specific timelines, and that's usually what the Miami Heat do. Players are more willing to kind of say that. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting just because the situation in about a month is going to tell like where they're going to be, because like if they're in a position where they're still in that play-in 8 seed range, they can't figure out the offense without Tyler Herro. Maybe certain guys don't pop like we're thinking they will without Tyler. Yeah, he's gonna like feel like he's gonna be rushed even more. Like it's gonna be like almost not that they're gonna put him out there because they don't do that, but from Heat fans, and it's gonna be like a little bit of a scramble this season. Like when is Tyler coming back, because he needs to somewhat save the season for the regular season and kind of put this team on the map. If it's the opposite way, and then the Heat kind of figure things out, the defense is leveled out, Powell's playing well in his role. I could see them being even more patient than usual. So it kind of depends on the way this goes.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Norm Powell, because that's number 2. He spoke to the Heat media as an assemblage for the first time today in person. And I thought, well, a couple of things. One thing that Spo said about him that has come across is that they're really impressed with his work ethic and all the time that he puts into it. And I asked him, I said, you're not the norm here. So no pun intended. I should have used the word norm with him. I didn't actually. In retrospect, that was a mistake. But that he's had his best seasons in his 30s, and that doesn't typically happen for a lot of guys. And he talked about how in previous stops, people kind of pigeonholed him initially as a defender, and then, which is something he needs to get back to a little bit more, by the way, and then as kind of a stopgap scorer. When your star was out, that you could fill a certain role, you could kind of plug and play. He talked about, playing with Kyle Lowry and Kawhi and others in Toronto and Siakam, and then with Harden, and then Kawhi being out last year with the Clippers and him filling in for him. And now Norm's back in that same situation where you've got a star who's out, and instead of getting to play with him, he's got to fill in for him. But he did say his goals are All-Star game and get us out of the play-in. How much of a burden do you think is going to fall on him early, and what did you take from what he said today?
There is going to be a burden on him. There shouldn't be, because I think that's going to be the demise of this team early in the season if they put it all on Norman Powell, just because if he's your number one option and your only option and teams are game planning against him, I think it's going to turn bad very quickly. They need to have these other options. They need to prioritize him off the ball. So with that said, I thought that was interesting. The point I asked him about that, and he said it's similar to like with Kawhi out with the Clippers, because I didn't really think about it like that. I more so was thinking of Tyler as the Harden. Right. So it still felt like they had that other option. I mentioned in the past that like there was some weird stats out there that like when Powell was without Harden, he was averaging like 11 points a game, which is very small sample size, but it kind of shows like what happens when teams are game planning around him. That's kind of what the goal this season is going to be early in the season, of how they're going to treat that. But I did like a lot of his answers and his approach about the kind of the defensive stuff as well. Like he was kind of making the point that that's kind of going under the radar, that he thinks he's a better defender, and that's being talked about. And you're going to see that him fitting in well on that end, that he's not just a scorer. Spo talked about the same thing, saying Powell's not just a scorer. That's actually the first thing he said. You'd predict that, because that's what Spo usually says. But I feel like he meant it. Like he is somebody that they were looking at as more than a scorer, specifically when Tyler was still healthy. This just makes things a lot more interesting. There's going to be a lot of burden on him. So I'm just interested to see. He needs somebody else to step up. And that's why we're going to get to some of these other guys, because that's the only way to make this offensive season work early in the year.
All right, we'll get to some of those other guys on the other side. We do want to mention, if you are looking for real estate in South Florida, buying or selling your house, reach out to our friends at realestateshopfl.com. You've heard from Javier here on the podcast, huge Miami Heat fan. He and Amanda will help you find the right house for you and or your family. So check them out. It's realestateshopfl.com, or the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. Complicated time for buying and selling a house. Go to experienced people who know the area, particularly Broward County, west all the way to the east, as well as anybody else does. Check them out. It's realestateshopfl.com. Let's get to number 3 here from the podium. Bam Adebayo. Spoelstra, again, focusing on leadership with him. He did that last year, and then Bam kind of got thrown this bomb, which was the Jimmy thing, which was almost impossible to manage. He doesn't have to deal with that this time, but this plays into the idea that this is a very young team. Everybody we talked to today, they acknowledge that. The players acknowledge that. There's more opportunities for some of these guys. We're projecting the rotation to be somewhere around 26 years of age. Bam is older than that average at this point, which is hard to believe. He's in his 9th season. When he was asked about offense, I asked him about offense, and that used to be the shot total that he had to have. The one thing he did say was that he wants to build on what he felt was his best stretch, which was the last 2 months of last season. And now there's no Tyler, but there is Norm. So how does he build on it, and what did you take from Bam?
It's really not building off it to me. I really don't think so. I think it's just those shots going in. He has to continue just take those shots over and over again, not spamming probably the three as much. And it's just getting back to that dotted line jumper, free throw line jumper, mid-range shot. Because the only way to open everybody else up, all the young guys, Fontecchio talked about in one of our interviews today, like they need Bam as the base within it all to make everything else work. So they just need him taking those shots and making those shots. I thought the interesting thing from the Bam discussion was more so what Spo had to say, where he was a little more adamant, like, of him needing to be a scorer early in the season, which I didn't expect him to say. Like he was acknowledging that he does everything else, the usual stuff, but he made sure to throw in too, like, you're gonna see another level. You're gonna have to get this level of offensive production. Like, I think they realized there's a lot of Powell, but the only way to make it work as a whole, like for the other guys to like come together, like I keep comparing it to that 1 year without Bam and Jimmy when they went on that December run with Kyle and all the things. It was a collective. It was such a collective that they had a base around that. But the only way to make that collective work with this roster specifically, because considering they don't have a lot of offense, is for Bam to be the base of that he attracts so much from the outside and you're able to spray and kind of, shoot the ball at a high level. So there is going to be honestly a ton on Bam early in the season offensively. It might not be dropping 30, but there is going to be a lot on his plate. But it seems like Spo's going to be pushing him to be doing a lot of the scoring with the way he was talking earlier today.
Yeah, that's obviously something that the fans are going to monitor too, because everybody's always counting Bam shot attempts and kind of where they come from. Number 4, I'm going to blend these two together. They all say they want to play fast. And Hawkes said it. Larson said it to us in an interview. Jovic obviously said it. He said it flat out. We need to play fast. He was talking about adamant. He was adamant about that. Now he's comfortable there, but as I said to every single player who said this, players always say this, and as Spo says this all the time. He says players always say this, and then you tell them to run and they don't. The biggest lie ever told is that the Heat will finish in the top half of the league in pace. Is this actually the year that they're going to finish in the top half of the league in pace?
No. I don't think so. But the reason I want them to lean and play faster with this roster, it doesn't just mean getting out on the fast break. Like, I just want them to play faster in general. I want them to play faster in the half court. Like, playing faster just means not being stagnant. Because I felt like there was so many points last season where they were just standing around. It was one action going on. The other players were watching in the corner. The playoffs. Go watch the offense in the playoffs. It was so much stagnant offense and watching. You need to lean into your youth. I thought Tyler said it best. He said, we have an athletic roster. We have a young roster. We need to play fast. Not meaning they're just going to run the break every time, which they can. They have the players to do it. But I think more so it's just like, even like we did the one with Jaime that you're going to hear soon, where he was talking about his rookie season and kind of getting back to the off-ball cutting and all that stuff. That was playing fast to me, like where you're just reactive and you're moving and you're never stopping. This roster has the ability to do that because they have a lot of guys in this roster that go like Davion, Pella, Jaime if he plays, that are just reactive and can just go 24/7. So if Davion is the starting point guard, if Nico is a primary guy on the team, which he will be early in the season, they're naturally forced to play it fast. Because if this roster doesn't play fast and they're playing slow into the half court, they're not going to win games. No. This roster doesn't. This is not a half court roster at all. So I don't think it's going to be that they're just like all of a sudden playing out of their mind on the fast break and forcing turnovers. I just think it's going to be. They just have to be a generally faster team playing through their young guys.
Well, I think this is one of the places. There are very few places where you're better off without somebody doing the things that Jimmy Butler did for them for years. This is one of the places where his absence, I think, actually makes it easier because there was this inclination to play his style because it was more effective. And now he's not there. And now that you've had not just, a few months to process it, you've had an entire offseason to process it. You've brought in new players. And there's nothing holding you back from just running, except, again, the desire to do so consistently and be in the condition to do it. And I'm curious to see how Spoelstra gets them into condition here as they go forward. All right, last one, and we'll cover much more going forward. But I did want to touch on Andrew Wiggins before we get out of here because I've never seen a player in Heat history where there's more focus on his emotional and mental happiness, right? Not that they don't care about their players, but as it translates to the court, like there seems to be this acknowledgement, even the Miami Heat social media team putting out posts of Wiggins smiling and Spo saying today again that you can tell that he's more comfortable and you can see that smile on his face. That's all good, Brady. I think it's important that he feels that way because obviously, it was difficult during the season last year. Spo said, that he had his best games when his family was actually here, which is, he wasn't here a lot because it was the transition. They loved him in Golden State because he did get comfortable after he wasn't necessarily comfortable all the time in Minnesota. But ultimately, there's also the on the court stuff. I know that the emotional stuff translates into that sometimes, but also he's got to find his way to be effective. And I thought him mentioning, and Mateo wrote this piece. He just walked in this room. He wrote this piece for a Sports Illustrated site where Wiggins was talking about trying to be more efficient at the rim specifically. They need that from him as much as anything else, right?
For sure. I mean, there was so much expectation around Wiggins when he first came in that he needed to get to the free throw line a ton, like Jimmy, around the rim and kind of do that, which is just not him. And he didn't really lean into it a ton. But I think he needs to get back to being that baseline guy that can rise up and dunk, that can just shoot that little push shot over the middle, lean into the finishing a little bit more, because I don't love the idea of Wiggins becoming just an outside spot up shooter. Yeah. That's not what he is. That's not what he came to the league to be. He was leaned on his athleticism, his mobility, his ability to get downhill. So I just think there was moments in last year where he had some of his best quarters. I think about when he was kind of in that flow state where he was shooting those like sidestep mid-range shots a lot of time where he'd go to his right that seemed like money every time. I thought that was interesting what Spo said, though, where he said some of his best games where his family was there. I mean, there is a human element to this, but I also think that things are becoming a lot more interesting without Tyler. We talk about how Powell's role changes and Bam's role changes. Wiggins is probably the most interested in me just because I thought coming into the season with Tyler healthy, it was finally a situation where Wiggins was put in the right role, where he was going to be the fourth option, and there wasn't a lot of expectations on him offensively. Not the best top three defenders on the team are not probably guarding him. He can kind of react in that way. And now he's back in the same position he was last year, where now you're getting probably the second best wing defender that's going to be put on you, and you have to kind of figure things out, and they're going to need him to be aggressive, and we're going to probably be having the same conversations that we were post All-Star break last year. So he's going to be an interesting player to watch, just because I think Powell, without Tyler and with Tyler, can figure it out, and his role ultimately probably won't change as much as we're making it out to be. Wiggins will, because when Tyler comes back, his role changes completely. Right now, they're going to need him to be aggressive, especially if Bam is getting doubled as much as I imagined in my head right now when I'm projecting the season and getting a ton of attention. They're going to need it.
And obviously they're going to need to defend, and that's going to be one of the things that's going to be focused on. And him and Davion. One guy I didn't mention, we will run a full podcast with him. Drew Smith seems like he's pretty close to ready to go, which is remarkable. We'll see, again, if he has the lateral quickness back and can defend the way that he was. But there are going to be some defensive lineups that Spoelstra can deploy with Davion, with Drew, with Wiggins, with Bam, etc. It's the offense that there was a lot of conversation about today and sort of how this is going to flow. They're going to need to play more of a European style, sort of open court early offense, because they do not have, and they know this. Like, I don't think any of them were questioning this when we threw this at them. They know they don't have guys just one-on-one ISO, just go get a bucket. And honestly, that's true even with Tyler in there, but Tyler makes the game easier for others as well, and they won't have that. So we'll see how it plays out. Training camp at FAU all this week. We'll have your coverage. For Brady, I'm Ethan. We're going to pack it up here for the day, but again, more content coming to the channel. Make sure to sign up for Off the Floor PrizePicks. Use the code 5 Real Estate Shop if you're looking for a house. Real Estate Shop FL.com. Have a good one, everybody.